The sea lamprey, also commonly known as the vampire fish, is a parasitic lamprey fish native to the northern hemisphere. With its eel-like body and jawless, round, sucker-like mouth, sea lampreys are often confused with eels but aren't related to them at all. An invasive species, the lamprey fish decimated lake trout populations in the Great Lakes Basin during the 1930s and 1940s. Lamprey fish are anadromous, which means that they migrate up rivers from lakes and oceans to spawn. It is the same process that salmon is famous for. Since the Middle Ages, the lamprey fish has been considered a delicacy in France. During the 1930s and 1940s, sea lampreys made their way into the Great Lakes and proceeded to decimate the population of much native fish, in particular, lake trout. Lamprey fish progress through a variety of stages during their lives and spend up to 6 years filter feeding on plankton and other debris. These fish belong to a family that consists of 8 genera and 31 species. There are several species of lamprey within its own genus, Petromyzon. When referring to a basic sea lamprey, the species' scientific name is Petromyzon marinus. Other examples of lamprey species from this genus include silver lamprey, American brook lamprey, northern brook lamprey with long, snake-like bodies featuring smooth, scaleless skin. These fish look remarkably similar to eels. In fact, many people assume that eels and lampreys are close relatives, but they are not. Mature lampreys can grow between 14 to 24 inches in length, and they attain an average weight of about 5 pounds. Sea lampreys are parasitic creatures, so their mouths have evolved to attach to hosts and suck their blood. As a result, their mouths are usually as wide as or even wider than their heads. There is no jaw, and the mouth has a round, sucker-like appearance. Consecutive circular rows of sharp teeth are found within. As anadromous fish, they spend part of their lives in freshwater and part of their lives in saltwater. During their final metamorphosis from filter feeders to parasitic lampreys, their kidneys change so they can tolerate saltwater, allowing them to enter lakes and oceans where they can seek hosts to feed on for survival until it's time to spawn. In terms of population, these fish are far from endangered. In fact, massive efforts have been undertaken to reduce its population in the Great Lakes Basin, where it decimated populations of lake trout and other fish after making its way there in the 1930s and 1940s. It is believed that these fish were natively found in Lake Champlain and the Finger Lakes, regions that are found in Vermont and New York State. The first sighting of the fish in Lake Ontario occurred during the 1830s, but it is unclear whether they were already there or if they were introduced through the Erie Canal, which was completed in 1825. In 1919, improvements were made to the Welland Canal, allowing the lamprey population to spread from Lake Ontario into Lake Erie. From there, it progressed into Lakes Michigan, Huron, and Superior. By the 1930s and 1940s, it was decimating populations of lake trout and other fish there. In native habitats, they co-evolved with their hosts, who developed defenses against them. As a result, hosts didn't usually die from the parasitic activity. Fish in the Great Lakes, however, developed no such defenses. After playing host to a lamprey, these fish often die either from blood loss or infection. In native habitation areas, lampreys' biggest predators are larger fish, which can bite and attack them, including walleye and brown trout. In areas that the species has invaded, like the Great Lakes, it is often the apex predator, which is why its populations are so damaging. In those same places, however, they face the threat of lampricides, chemicals used to diminish their populations, and other population control methods. As adults, these fish engage in hematophagous feeding, which means that they bite and latch onto other creatures and feed on their blood. Common targets are thin-skinned fish like salmon, lake trout, lake whitefish, northern pike, walleye and lake sturgeon, but they will feed on sharks and rays too. Sea lampreys dig in their rows of teeth to obtain a strong grip on their hosts. They then rasp their sharp tongue through the host's scales and secrete an enzyme that prevents blood from clotting. After spawning, which includes a process in which the male squeezes the female's body to eject the eggs, a female drops the eggs into a nest that has been built by her male counterpart. These nests are located in substrate levels of rivers with medium-strong currents. Both male and female fish die after spawning. The larvae from the eggs emerge after 10 to 13 days and burrow into silt and sand along the stream's bottom. They then spend 4 to 6 years in this larval stage, filter feeding on plankton and various types of debris. At that point, the lamprey metamorphizes to the parasitic stage of its life. It proceeds to spend the next 12 to 20 months feeding on hosts that it encounters before making its way up rivers and streams to spawn and then die.